Check 1 2 1 2. You got anything now, Colin? Check 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. Hey. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. Anything through the MSDC? Check 1 2 3 4. Hey. Check 1 2 3 4. Check 1 2. Yeah, I can see level there now.
Okay, guys, in the booth, Colin. Exactly.
There's no coffee period. Okay.
Check 1 2. Check 1 2 1 2 3.
Testing, testing, testing. Testing English, testing English, test. And can you hear me on English? Testing English, testing English. Testing English.
Oh, one more. Here. Mayor's gone right now. Oh, there he is. You want to meet the mayor again?
Sure.
Sure. Oh, here he comes.
Hello. How are you? I'm good. Nice to see you too.
I hear good things about you. You got a great voice.
Thank you.
Want to get a picture in front of the flags here?
Multi-talented guy. He's a singer. Get the computer ready. You just chill it.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. If I could ask the public and members of council to take a seat, we'll begin the meeting in 1 minute. On va commencer la réunion dans 1 minute. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Bon matin, mesdames et messieurs, et bienvenue à la Conseil municipal.
Good morning and welcome to the City Council meeting of November 12th.
November 12th, 2015. For those who are able to, would you please rise for a moment of reflection and remain standing for the national anthem. If you could remain standing, I'll ask our Councillor Jody Minnick to introduce our very special guest who is going to sing "O Canada."
Thank you, Mayor. Kyle Mahar is 13 years old and grade 8 student from Chapel Hill South in Innis Ward. He's a multi-talented young man. He's a singer, guitar player at the School of Rock. At the School of Rock, a unique school that offers training in band settings and opportunities to perform in many venues. Kyle has performed on the big stage at events such as Hope Volleyball, Kitchener Big Music Fest, and various East End community events, including where I first heard him, the Chapel Hill Summer Sizzler. You might also recognize Kyle from TV commercials, perhaps during Ottawa hockey games, as Kyle is also an actor with Angie's Model and Talent in Ottawa. His stardom on the main stage has helped him secure roles in various movies, music videos, TV shows, and commercials. Kyle is also a competitive hockey player for the Orleans Blues. Ladies and gentlemen, Kyle Mahar.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all thy sons command. Car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Well, that was terrific, Kyle. Thank you very, very much for being with us today, and thank you, Councillor Minnick, for suggesting Kyle. I'd now, at this point, it's my honor to present distinguished citizen of our city with the Mayor's City Builder Award. I'd ask Mr. Joe Umbosch to come forward, along with Joe's City Councillor Rick Shirelli and Councillor Keith Aglai, who also has a special connection with Joe, if they would also come forward. Joe is a long-time volunteer with the CNIB's Leston Hall Chorus, a group of visually impaired adults who sing and share their musical talents at seniors' homes across the city of Ottawa. For over 25 years, Joe has brought joy to seniors' lives, encouraging them to sing and dance with his group's musical selections. Cela fait plus de 25 ans.
For over 25 years, Joe has brought joy to seniors' lives, encouraging them to dance and sing along with his group's musical selections.
Almost any musical instrument by ear, including piano, organ, electronic keyboard, guitar, accordion, harmonica, electric bagpipes, and several wind instruments. You are very talented, Joe, playing all those instruments. Joe was born on the Cat Lake First Nation, an Ojibwe reserve about 180 kilometers northwest of Sioux Lookout. Blind from birth, he was taken into the care of the province of Ontario at age 13 and has been living in a group home in Ottawa since 1988. Aveugle de naissance, il a été pris en
Blind from birth, he was taken into the care of the province of Ontario at age 13 and has been living in a group home in Ottawa since 1988.
To return to Northern Ontario and live closer to his family. After many years and overcoming many obstacles, Joe is finally moving back to Northern Ontario in January to be close to his family. We're very sad to see you go, Joe, but are happy you'll be able to achieve your lifelong dream of returning to the North. Joe, thank you for the many, many years of entertainment that you brought our city through the Leston Hall Chorus, and it's my pleasure to present you with the Mayor's City Builder Award as a small token of appreciation for a job well done. Congratulations. Hey, Joe, if you want to just turn around, we'll just turn you around that way. Oh, right here. J'aimerais prendre une minute pour dire au revoir à Jean-François Dugard, journaliste de longue date au journal Le Droit. JF quitte son poste pour une nouvelle carrière où il travaille principalement au Québec et même s'il est un partisan des habitants du Montréal, il va nous manquer ici à l'Hôtel de Ville. Alors, JF, bonne chance avec votre nouveau métier dans l'industrie de bière. Donner des exemplaires de temps en temps avec mes collègues ici à Conseil municipal et merci pour votre service à Le Droit et dans le monde du journalisme. Bravo. Roll call, please, Madam Deputy Clerk.
Conseiller Minette.
Present.
Councillor Middick.
Here.
Councillor Harder.
Here.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Present.
Councillor El-Shantiri.
Present.
Councillor Caudry.
Present.
Councillor Taylor.
Ici.
Councillor Shirelli. Councillor Eglai.
Here.
Councillor Deans.
Here.
Councillor Tierney.
Present.
Conseiller Fleury.
Ici.
Councillor Nussbaum.
Ici.
Councillor McKenney.
Present.
Councillor Leeper.
Here.
Councillor Brockington,
Here.
Councillor Chernyshenko,
Présent.
Councillor Cloutier,
Présent.
Councillor Blais,
Présent.
Councillor DeRuse,
Here.
Councillor Moffat,
Here.
Councillor Kakish,
Present.
Councillor Hughley,
Here.
Mayor Watson.
Ici.
Le programme est 10, Monsieur le maire.
Merci.
You have the quorum. Thank you.
The minutes, adoption de procès verbaux le 28 octobre, 28th of October minutes. Carried. Declaration of interest, including those originally rising from prior meetings. Déclaration de conflit d'intérêt. None. Communications as presented. Regrets, no regrets filed to date. Motion to introduce reports. Motion présente des rapports. Conseiller Eglai and McKenney, s'il vous plaît.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That the rules of procedure be suspended to receive and table the report from the Deputy City Treasurer entitled 2016 Draft Operating Capital Budgets. The report from the Deputy City Manager, City Operations entitled Canada 150 Community Infrastructure Program, Projects and Strategic Initiatives 37, Recreation Facility Upgrades Projects. The report from the Committee of Adjustment entitled 2016 Draft Draft Operating Estimates Committee of Adjustment. The report from Crime Prevention Ottawa entitled 2016 Draft Operating Budget, Crime Prevention Ottawa. The report from the Ottawa Police Services Board entitled Ottawa Police Services Board 2016 Draft Operating and Capital Budgets. The report from the Ottawa Public Library Board entitled the Ottawa Public Library 2016 Draft Budget Estimates. And the report from the Ottawa Board of Health entitled 2016 Draft Operating Budget for the Ottawa Board of Health. As these reports relate to the 2016 Draft Operating and Capital Budgets being tabled at this meeting, and that the rules of procedure be waived to receive and consider the report from the Director of Human Resources entitled FTE Analysis Report Information Supplemental to Budget Estimates, as this report relates to the 2016 Draft Operating and Capital Budgets being tabled at this meeting, and that the report from the City Clerk and Solicitor entitled Status Update, Council Inquiries and Motions for the period ending 6 November 2015, Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee Report 9, Finance and Economic Development Committee Report 9, Planning Committee Report 16A, and Transportation Committee Report 9 be received and considered, and that the rules of procedure be suspended to receive and consider Built Heritage Subcommittee Report 1 because of the urgency of the item contained in the report, and waiver of the rules is being requested, said as follows: waiver of the rules is being requested for Built Heritage Subcommittee Report 1, item 13 of the agenda, due to timelines to allow the property owner to move forward with demolition and construction before winter.
Thank you, Councillor Eglai. On the motion, carried. So we'll come back to the budget items. We'll go to consent agenda, report, City Clerk and Solicitor, status update, Council inquiries and motions, rapport de situation, received. Committee reports, Agriculture and Rural Affairs, Comité de l'Agriculture et des Affaires Rurales. Councillor Moffat has a technical amendment on a typographical error. Councillor Moffat, second by Councillor DeRuse.
Thanks. I'm not going to read this. We left out a number. It was supposed to say 2013. Instead, it says 203. So we're just correcting it. That's what the motion says. Thanks.
Okay. On the motion, carried. On the motion as amended, carried. Speed reduction on Apple Orchard Drive. Réduction de la limite de vitesse sur la promenade Apple Orchard, carried. Development charges 3765 Loggers Way. Redevance d'aménagement 3765 Voies Loggers, carried. Build Heritage Subcommittee Report number 1, rapport numéro 1 de sous-comité de patrimoine bâti, removal of 3524 McBean Street from the City of Ottawa Heritage Register, carried. FEDCO Report number 9, 2015 Mid-Year Purchasing Report, received. Transportation Committee Report number 9, rapport numéro 9 de Comité de Transport, Roadside Memorials Policy, carried.
Dissent.
Dissent by Councillor McKenney. Improving the urban design in front of the Embassy of the United States of America, mise en valeur d'un dessin urbain devant l'ambassade des États-Unis d'Amérique. Quick word.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to share with members of council that what you're seeing on Sussex will be replicated on Mackenzie, and it's as part of a resurfacing program, and through that we're able to bring in those cycling lanes, so that missing connection. And at the same time, it was a great partnership and discussion with the American Embassy and the National Capital Commission. Ready for 2017. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Merci. On the report, carried, adopté. Hunt Club Road speed reduction, réduction de la limite de vitesse sur le chemin Hunt Club, carried. Dissent by Councillor Harder and Councillor Hubley. Does anyone wish to remove anything from the bulk consent agenda? No. On the bulk consent agenda as presented? Carried. Good morning. It's my pleasure to provide an overview of the proposed 2016 budget. Today, I'm pleased to tell you that we are tabling a balanced budget. This is good news for local families, residents, and businesses, all of whom expect us to live within our means. Le budget préliminaire de 2016 respecte l'orientation du Conseil visant.
The draft 2016 budget follows Council's direction to keep the tax rate at 2%.
Steady on our priorities of transit, affordable housing, and strengthening the local economy. We will also protect our frontline services. In short, Budget 2016 proposes that we continue to be an activist council by investing in what matters most to our residents. I want to thank our city manager, treasurer, deputy city managers, and their staffs for their hard work on this budget. I also want to thank all of you around this table for your input, counsel, and guidance. Je tiens également à remercier tous mes collègues autour de cette table.
I also want to thank all my colleagues around this table.
Staff to discuss your ideas and priorities. You also passed along your ideas provided by our residents from across the city during the budget consultation process. And let me give you an overview of our 2016 budget priorities. Budget 2016 will make key investments to create stronger communities. Le budget de 2016 prévoit de
Budget 2016 will make key investments to create stronger communities.
Helping even more people afford to have a roof over their heads. We have made tremendous progress over the last few years. By making unprecedented investments in our city's most vulnerable, we now have far fewer people living on the street than we did 5 years ago. And while we can take pride in this achievement, there is obviously more work to be done. For 2016, the draft budget proposes continuing the $2 million increase in base funding for affordable housing and homelessness programs that we funded through the provincial upload. One of the major projects being funded in part by these dollars is the Carlington Community Health Centre. This partnership between the city, OCH, the province, and the Government of Canada, and the Carlington Community Health Centre will break ground in 2016, and once built will bring 42 new affordable housing units to our city. I'm very proud of our increased funding for affordable housing. Je suis très fier de la façon.
I'm very proud of our increased funding for affordable housing.
Planned and past investments by this council and the last council will amount to more than $100 million in new dollars in this area. Whether it's through rent subsidies, new units, or renovations of older housing stock, we have made a true difference in the lives of people. These investments, alongside our predictable 2% tax rate, will ensure Ottawa continues to be an affordable place to raise a family, and will strengthen communities outside the home as well. Nous renforçons également nos communautés à l'extérieur.
It will strengthen communities outside the home as well.
Proposes continuing the $50,000 increase we've given for low-income families who want to access recreation programs and make this fund permanent. We'll also support our community volunteers who run more than 230 local outdoor ice rinks by increasing the grants we provide them by 10%. This winter will see the first increase to this program for these very dedicated volunteers in 10 years. These are modest but important measures in improving the quality of life in all of our respective communities. This budget also proposes continuing our investments in our gang exit strategy and putting these dollars into the base budget. This is not a problem that will obviously go away overnight. Ce n'est pas un problème qui se réglera.
This is not a problem that will go away overnight.
With our partners at Crime Prevention Ottawa, Ottawa Police Services, the John Howard Society, and Ottawa Community Immigration Services organization to move this strategy forward. In 2016, The Ottawa Police Service Board proposes that this good work will be supported by 25 new police officers. The budget we're tabling today also proposes a 1.5% increase in the amounts we give to community health resource centers. These organizations conduct important outreach and provide crucial services at the local level, especially for our vulnerable population. We've been steadily increasing contributions in this area since 2010, with overall funding to these centers rising to more than $10.9 million, a 25% increase over 6 years. As a whole, this budget proposes making targeted, smart investments to lift people out of poverty and create healthier, safer communities. Ottawa is seen as a leader in this area, and we will continue to lead. La ville d'Ottawa est considérée comme une
Ottawa is seen as a leader in this area, and we will continue to lead.
Budget 2016 will also allow us to continue the progress we're making to provide great community infrastructure. That means our frontline service priorities such as parks, recreation, and culture. When you look at the proposed budget amounts in the area, you'll be pleased to see our investments continue to increase in 2016. The draft budget proposes investing $2 million in recreation facility upgrades and an additional $1.03 million in community partnership grants next year. Budget 2016 proposes 10 new splash pads in community parks, locations around the city during the next 3 years, and will also invest $280,000 for design work for a future expansion of Blackburn Arena. And the city will provide more than $1.2 million to partner with other funders in Canada 150 projects. Et la ville fournit plus de 1,
And the city will provide more than $1.2 million to partner with other funders in Canada 150 projects.
This includes expanding the Bayshore Fieldhouse and the Manatic Arena, and an addition at the Albion Hetherington Community Centre. We'll also build on the community success we've seen at the François Dupuis pool site as we invest $5.5 million to add a full-service community centre to that fast-growing part of the East End. Our parks will also see upgrades or expansions. These include Inverness, Pinecrest, Sawmill Creek, Optimist, Chaudière, and Stonegate parks. The draft budget also proposes contributing more than $320,000 to complete the playground at the new Miracle League of Ottawa baseball field for children with disabilities. Some of these investments we propose are smaller scale or behind the scenes. Certains des investissements que nous proposons.
Some of the investments we propose are smaller scale or behind the scenes.
Pool deck, gym floor, or hand railings, or maybe even a new elevator or a ventilation system. These investments are very important for the long-term health of our facilities and the people who use them and who staff them. For example, we'll invest $1.8 million in much-needed rehabilitation for the Ray Friel and Bob McQuarrie complexes in Orleans. Other facilities will see similar rehabilitation, including Walter Baker, Beaverbrook, Dunrobin, Goulburn, Manor Park, Terry Fox, and the Nepean Sportsplex. Arenas such as the Howard Darwin Centennial Arena and the West Carleton Community Complex will also see work. On a citywide basis, we will invest a total of $326 million to improve existing and build new infrastructure. À la chaîne de la ville, nous investirons.
On a citywide basis, we will invest a total of $326 million to improve existing and build new infrastructure.
Show our continued commitment to preserving our roads, sidewalks, bridges, cycling paths, culverts, and water mains. Citywide, we'll be investing $35 million in road resurfacing on key roads like Iris Street and Jean d'Arc Boulevard North. This figure also includes a significant investment in the resurfacing and reconstruction of our rural roads, including Carp Road, Quigley Hill Road, Old Stagecoach Road, and Earl Armstrong Road. And in the downtown core, we'll get ready for the 2017 celebrations by repaving Wellington Street, Kent Street, and Mackenzie Avenue. Beyond this, we will have integrated roadwork projects which tie together our road, sewer, and water main renewal work. In this area, the draft budget proposes investing $65 million in 2016. This includes Gilmore, Renfrew, Cartier, Waverley, Prince of Wales, Crystal Beach, and Montreal Road. We'll improve structures such as the Gavin Road Bridge, large culverts on Ramseyville Road and Diamond View Road, and the 9th Line Road Bridge. These are the kinds of core investments that we need to protect and promote. Our city has spent an historic amount on roads, transit, and infrastructure in the last 5 years. And now we have a partner at the federal level that says it will triple funding on infrastructure. That is very encouraging. The City of Ottawa will be at the table as a partner to help reach this goal and spur our city's economic renewal. One thing that myself and my fellow council members have heard repeatedly from residents are complaints about speeding in residential areas. This is a significant problem and one that we are taking steps to address. In Budget 2016, each ward will again receive $40,000, a total of $920,000 across the city, to institute traffic calming measures that are highly responsive to each ward's specific challenges. There will also be new traffic control devices at intersections like Conroy and Queensdale and Blair at Claver. And we'll continue to implement our Complete Streets approach to selected road reconstruction projects in order to better serve all modes of transportation that our residents use. It is clear that Ottawa is becoming a more dynamic city in many different ways. Il est clair qu'Ottawa devient une ville de...
It is clear that Ottawa is becoming a more dynamic city in a number of ways.
This year, we will see our single biggest arts capital investment take shape, the revitalized Arts Court and the expanded Ottawa Art Gallery. This regional arts hub is long overdue, and as you know, construction has already begun. We'll continue to grow our commitment to cultural funding by an additional 1.5% this year. Since 2010, we've increased annual cultural grant funding to cultural groups by more than $1 million, and this does not include capital grants to organizations such as GCTC and La Nouvelle Scène, which is ready to open next year. In 2016, we'll also continue our investments to ensure cycling remains a safe and attractive option for commuters and families. For example, this budget proposes to allocate $200,000 to maintain our 40-kilometer winter cycling network. I'm pleased to tell you that we will also move forward on two key bike lane projects this year. The first is a partnership with the NCC and the Embassy of the United States of America for bike lanes on Mackenzie Avenue that we just voted on. This will provide better cycle connectivity and remove the unattractive Jersey barriers in front of the embassy. I want to personally thank United States Ambassador Bruce Heyman, who brought this offer to me several months ago. In 2016, we'll also break ground on the first phase of the O'Connor Street bike lane, which will be a great north-south option for cyclists. This will be a perfect complement to the Laurier bike lanes, which will likely celebrate their 2 millionth rider by this time next year. In addition to this, we'll invest $1.1 million for cycling improvements on Searville Road. Looking ahead, we'll also open the $9.2 million Somerset Donald pedestrian and cycling bridge. Ce sera l'inauguration de 5e.
Looking ahead, we will also open the bridge.
This term of council was the largest the city has ever seen. And at the end of this term, we are on track to do even better by investing more than $31 million over 4 years. And on the strength of the recommendation made by our Transportation Committee, we will make an important down payment of $4.8 million on the 5th Avenue and Clegg Street pedestrian crossing, linking the Glebe and Lansdowne Park to Old Ottawa East. I'm delighted to hear that there is strong support for this project at the municipal, provincial, and federal levels. Colleagues, we need to look at this budget against the backdrop of the reality of our local economy and the average family's budget. We must be aware that the rate of development and growth has been slowing down. Nous devons être sensibles.
We must be aware that the rate of development and growth has been slowing down.
Clear slowdown in our economy, with increases in our assessment base projected to be 1.3%, or $18.4 million in new additional taxation revenue in 2016. By comparison, in 2015, assessment growth generated $24.6 million in additional tax revenue, more than a $6 million decline. We need to be aware of the challenge this places on our future plans to fund infrastructure and other priorities. This will be a challenge. However, the answer would not be to saddle the business sector, first-time homeowners, or seniors on fixed incomes with an even higher increase in taxes. This is true across the city, but even more so for wards in the urban downtown core, which are being hard hit by property reassessments ranging as high as 8% between assessment periods. This means some homes will already face a higher tax bill in the years ahead, even before we adjust our own tax rate because of market value assessment. Our job is clear. Budget time is not just about deciding where we spend money. It is equally important to look internally to find savings. In a $3 billion organization, we should have every confidence that we and our staff can find innovative solutions. That's why in October, City Council directed staff to pursue a multi-year efficiency measures to address structural financial challenges such as winter maintenance costs, arbitrated wage settlements, and increased insurance costs. And I was grateful for the useful suggestions for savings brought forward by members of Council when I met with each of you about your ideas and those of your constituents. Let me give you a few examples. During our meeting, some councillors brought hard copies of glossy printed materials that promoted city programs, delivered in large quantities in different venues such as libraries and rec centres. Sometimes these products are printed out of habit, and it's reasonable to rethink how much we spend on advertising and printing. Some noticed the number of brand new city-owned trucks in some of our municipal lots. It's reasonable to press the pause button on new car and truck purchases while we review how we deliver a more efficient and cost-effective winter maintenance program. I think it's a similar decision any family would make when they are considering options for their household budget. Several of you questioned the number of employees in a certain unit or branch. Plusieurs d'entre vous ont remis une question.
Several of you questioned the number of employees in a certain unit or branch.
Our city management has taken these suggestions and will include them as part of an ongoing operational review we approved last month. The budget being tabled today proposes a reduction of 50 full-time equivalent employee positions. This is the 5th budget in a row that would see a municipal workforce reduced in a responsible fashion during the same years we've been named one of Canada's top 100 employers. We'll continue to manage the size of our workforce in a responsible manner even as we continue to grow. And looking internally, we propose measures in Budget 2016 that will save us money next year and put us on a more stable footing as we go forward in the years ahead. Some examples include reviewing planned purchases of trucks and other vehicles, saving $300,000 by contracting out the city's ironworks, reducing the use of consultants for city business, reducing paid advertising and media, monitoring services, printing and postage, converting streetlights to more efficient LED technology, reducing overtime and on-call staff time, réduire les recours aux heures supplémentaires et au personnel,
reducing overtime and on-call staff time,
and properties to sell. These are the types of efficiencies that we have been diligent about finding. We owe it to the residents of Ottawa to make sure their tax dollars are spent wisely, and that starts by looking carefully at our own internal spending. Of course, 2016 will be a big year for light rail transit. Construction of the O-Train Confederation line will continue, which requires dollars not just for construction, but also for OC Transpo to shift to a multimodal transportation company. We'll also get ready for Stage 2 of LRT. This Council can be very proud of the progress we have done so far. Ce Conseil municipal peut être fier de
The Council can be very proud of the progress that has been done up till now.
Government are now in lockstep on this project. And we can also be optimistic when we see both the provincial and federal governments looking to invest more on infrastructure to stimulate the economy. As we move forward with preliminary engineering work for Stage 2 of LRT this year, we will work hard to ensure our partners maximize their contributions to this transformative city building project. We have a strong case not only for Stage 2, but funding as well for the Trim Road and Airport Spur Lines expansion. And as part of our TMP refresh, we will look at the feasibility of extending LRT to Canada. I look forward to working with all of you around the table to make this happen. Because we all share the goal of creating a world-class transit system for our nation's capital. Je sais que nous partageons l'objectif de créer une
I know that we share the objective of having a world-class transit system.
Residents are starting to see us make good on the promise as they watch the LRT being built right before their very eyes. As we undertake this important work, we are always aware of growing pains on our transit customers. At the same time, we must remember that this did not happen overnight. This has been a well-coordinated effort that is going according to plan. The city and its partners have invested significant sums to make this an easier transition for all our road users, especially our transit customers. This includes an expanded O-Train Trillium line, increasing the frequency of trips, a $206 million provincial investment in Highway 417 expansion, with extra lanes being exclusively used by our buses for the next 2 years, and $33 million for new buses to increase capacity during construction. This draft budget proposes $11.5 million in bus and other OC Transpo vehicle renewal. Ce budget préliminaire propose 11.
This draft budget proposes $11.5 million in bus and other OC Transpo vehicle renewal.
Millions more in station and transitway improvements to create a more comfortable transit experience. We must also remember that the city's share of funding for transit capital does not come from the fare box. That funding already comes from the municipal taxpayers who foot 100% of all capital costs. This is in addition to the nearly $88 million in annual gas tax revenue from the federal and provincial governments that vehicle owners pay, dedicated exclusively to transit. The draft budget proposes that the city will generate an increase in the fare box revenue of 2.5% in 2016. This is a balanced approach. While it would be always nice to see fares frozen, this would severely undermine and underfund our LRT affordability plan that we all support. I suppose if we could freeze wage settlements or fleet maintenance costs, then we could freeze fares. But that is simply not realistic. One only has to look back 2 councils ago to see fare increases of 7.5% 3 years in a row. We must continue our balanced approach into the future to ensure we have the funds to pay for better transit to the benefit of all our residents. We've spent some time in the last few months talking about some of the financial challenges we face today and that are on the horizon. As elected officials, our residents expect us to look at these challenges reasonably and in a balanced way. They expect us to show leadership and live within our means. Les résidents s'attendent à ce que nous fassions.
They expect us to show leadership and live within our means.
But that does not mean that we will cut back on or abandon our priorities. Colleagues, if anyone was worried about the city changing direction on its core priorities, there's no evidence of that in this budget. In closing, let me give you a 2016 summary. We'll continue building light rail transit and transform our transportation system. That includes construction for the Confederation Line and moving forward confidently with Stage 2 to Orleans, Bayshore, Algonquin College, and Riverside South. We'll see the revitalized Arts Court take shape. The budget includes funds for the planning and building of 2 new fire stations at Searville and Orleans South. We'll open the Bayview Innovation Center for small business and entrepreneurs. We'll move towards procurement of a new central library with a $2.9 million contribution from the city alongside a $1 million contribution from the library. We'll start converting our street lights to a more efficient LED technology and saving $600,000 on the way. We'll break ground on the final part of the Ottawa River Action Plan in 2016. We'll install new red light cameras to keep our streets safe. We'll fix roads, sidewalks, and recreation and community centers, and we'll continue record investments in transit, arts and culture, affordable housing, and economic development. And we'll action our solid game plan to attract investment and tourists ahead of 2017. Et nous mettrons en action un solide plan de match pour attirer des...
And we'll have a solid action plan for 2017.
In Stittsville, and a resident came up to me and said, quote, "I like the fact that the city is finally getting things done," end quote. It was a brief conversation, but one that I believe sums up our can-do attitude. When you look at what's ahead for 2016 and beyond, we are creating a more compassionate, sustainable, dynamic city. Colleagues, it is truly an exciting time to be in Ottawa, and working together, we can make it even better. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Councillor Monette.
Mr. Mayor, I have a motion on behalf of myself and seconded by Councillor Taylor. Be it resolved that the mayor's remarks given at the City Council meeting on November 12, 2015 be appended to the minutes of today's council meeting.
On the motion, carried. Thank you. Merci. So the process that we'll follow is outlined by the Deputy Clerk's memo to Council, as the City Manager will begin the detailed presentation, followed by the Deputy Treasurer. And we ask that you hold questions to those officials until the other presenters from police and so on come forward. And just to remind you, these questions are really general in nature. The specific questions will be dealt with at committee. So please, if it's on a procedure aspect, that's fine, or if it's something specifically referenced in the global presentation, we're going to keep the detailed questions when the public have a chance to deal with them as well at committee. So, Mr. Kirkpatrick, the floor is yours.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and members of council for submitting your directions, your comments, and your suggestions before the tabling of the budget 2016.
In the budget process, and especially the process of individual meetings, which were very productive and assisted staff significantly in developing the budget that we are tabling for your consideration today.
I am pleased today to introduce Isabelle Jasmine, who will be giving you the details that support what the mayor just said.
Well, I want to talk briefly about the management effort that has gone into the creation of this budget and will continue after its adoption by council. When we tabled the 2015 draft budget last February, I stated that the financial challenges facing the city in the years ahead required looking beyond the traditional one-year budget window and required a multi-year approach. A multi-year approach allows for the time required to develop and implement strategies that can take time, sometimes years, to effect. The second reason for taking a longer-term approach to budget planning is to address Council's adopted term priority of financial sustainability. A measure of financial sustainability is taking a longer-term view of finances to ensure services can be delivered, infrastructure can be maintained, and Council priorities can be funded while keeping tax increases at a predictable and affordable level. The work on the budget strategy for the years 2016, 17, and 2018 started this past spring, and the results of that work and related recommendations were presented to and approved by Council in the Budget Guideline Report in October. As you would expect, the 2016 budget that is being tabled for your consideration today adheres to those budget guidelines and the strategy that you approved for 2016. With respect to the 2017 and 2018 budget years, staff will be pursuing the reviews that were identified in the guideline document, as well as the ideas and suggestions for efficiencies that were identified by members of Council, and will be reporting back to Council through 2016 and 2017 with the product of that work. This will be accomplished in a timeline that allows for the achievement of the budget savings identified in the guideline report as being necessary in those years. Related to this, I would like to highlight that management's response to Councillor Aglai's direction to staff will be submitted for FEDCO's consideration at the meeting of December 1st. Councillors will recall that this direction called for management to develop proposals to establish a corporate budget or challenge function to be funded within existing resources that will do the following: provide an effective and formal early warning system to identify any significant variances developing between departmental spending and or revenue budgets and their monthly actuals to allow for early course corrections if necessary, oversee regular reviews of administrative spending and identify cross-departmental synergies and or options for administrative efficiencies, review the departmental plans to achieve their corporate expenditure reduction and efficiency targets, and provide a challenge function for those submissions as well as annual budget submissions. And finally, develop a reporting mechanism for council that indicates where and when a course correction or efficiency opportunity was suggested and the actions taken or required to achieve it. I raise this because I think it's relevant to the comment that I'm about to make, which is that I have a high degree of confidence, and I believe that Council can have as well, that the budget strategy that you've approved for the remainder of this term will be achieved. Management will apply the continuous focus necessary to accomplish the strategy and the savings it contemplates. Importantly, management will also report back to Council on an ongoing basis in this regard. Merci, Monsieur le Maire, and I will now
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Et maintenant,
details of the 2016 budget.
Thank you, Kent. Today's presentation is an overview of all the budgets and is a combined amount. This includes police, public health, library, and transit. Only a summary is provided here today. And the detailed budgets will be presented individually to each committee, board, and commission.
Let's see if we can get that mic fixed, please.
Hello? Okay. Today's budget reflects the direction approved by Council on October 14th. It also takes into consideration input provided from the pre-budget consultations held in the fall and from each councillor. In this presentation, I will provide an overview of the tax and rate-supported operating budget and capital budget, and will quickly review the budget timetable for those who would like to get involved during the budget review process. The budget directions were approved in October, and one of the key items was to limit the municipal portion of the residential property tax bill to 2%. While it's 2% on a residential bill, that means overall tax revenues are only increasing by 1.75% for city and police, and that is because of provincial policy.
Sorry, we're having a difficult time hearing. Either the mic has to go up or you'll have to move Isabel to another seat. Apologize.
Maybe. Okay.
I think we need the volume up on it, Ms. Deputy Clerk.
Am I okay now?
Yeah, speak right into it. You have to bring it over.
Increasing by 1.75% for city and police, and that is because of provincial policy that limits how much of the tax increase we can pass on to commercial class. The annual additional taxation revenues for growth is forecasted at 1.3%. This is a reduction from last year and reflects the decline in residential and commercial development. As directed by Council and as identified in the Transit Affordability Plan, this budget also includes a 2.5% increase to the transit levy, which translates to 2.85% on residential tax bill. Les conseils et commissions ont toutes été
Councils and commissions were all asked to prepare the budget based on the same objectives, and they did it. We've included the strategic initiatives for operating and capital that were determined through the establishment of the priorities of Council for 2016 last year. We were asked to continue to contribute to the capital program in order to reach an investment level that will allow us to keep our gains in a good place. The user fees will increase as expected in the budget. In 2016, we will update our long-term plan regarding the capital funded by taxes, the tariffs, and transit.
Limits the citywide and police tax increases to 2% for a person owning a home in an urban area of which the average valuation is $375,300. The increase corresponds to a $55 per year for municipal services. The dollar value is a preliminary number. The actual amount will be based on the actual valuation of the properties and changes to the fiscal policy adopted by the Council before finalizing the tax rates. This 2% increase to residential and 0.88% increase to commercial translates to an overall increase of 1.75% to the city. The Conseil a aussi approuvé une hausse de taxe pour le
Council also approved a tax increase for transit of 2.5%, which is 2.85% increase for average residential client and 2.25% for the commercial ones. The garbage collection fees will remain the same this year. Consequently, the total rise or increase for the consumer will be $72 a year in the urban center.
For the water and sewer budget, the rate budgets, as we refer to them, is 6%. And this was identified in the LRFP that was adopted in 2012. For an average household with a yearly consumption of 220 cubic meters of water, this represents an annual increase of approximately $49. The preliminary budgets as tabled takes into account the various FTE positions required to provide municipal services in 2016. For all services, we need a total of 15,092 FTEs. This is a net reduction of 31 FTEs based on 2015 levels. Sorry, I gave you the 2015 number. Sorry, it's 15,061 FTEs. Police are recommending an increase of 25 FTEs, and public health an increase of 2. As part of the multi-year exercise to identify service efficiencies, the police are recommending a reduction of 6, public health 2, and city departments are recommending a reduction of 50.32 FTEs. These FTE reductions will not impact frontline service delivery levels, but will be the result of implementing more efficient processes in delivery of those services and within administrative operations. La ville possède un budget brut.
The city has a gross budget of $3.165 billion. By looking at the circular picture here, you see that many sectors represent the various services provided by the city. The 5 main services represent 57% of the total budget. This is the transit service, 90 million, police, 305 million, water and sewer, 31 million, protection and emergency services, 273, and social services, 413 million. The $3.1 billion are funding several services. These investments are not all funded by taxes, but by other sources also.
The graph shows all the sources of funding for the $3.165 billion. You will note that there are not as many slices in this graph. We really only have 2 sources of funds. We have taxpayers, and we have those who use the services, and most residents are both. The $572 million shown for the federal and provincial funding represents all grants that are dedicated toward particular services, such as social services, child care services, long-term care, and others. These conditional grants are not available to use for any other purpose. So user fees and service charges of $792 million and property taxes of $1.5 billion are the main sources of revenue to support the operations of this corporation. We will now look at the operating budgets. The funding capacity that has been created as a result of tax increases, user fee increases, and revenue that we're receiving from other levels of government totals $60.6 million. Of that, user fees and charges, and this would not include transit services, is $5 million. $3 million is from regular inflationary increases, which is in line with Council's fiscal framework, and the remainder is from increased advertising and new revenue agreements. This draft budget recommends a 2.5% increase in total transit fares, which is projected to generate $2.2 million in additional revenues. The revenue cost ratio for transit is budgeted at 51.6%. The matching funding from provincial cost sharing is increasing by $8.5 million. $4.7 million of that is from the provincial upload to cover the costs of Ontario Works, and there is also additional funding for childcare, public health, paramedics, and long-term care to cover the increasing costs of these programs. For tax and assessment growth, we are projecting a 1.3% increase in the value of the assessment roll, which generates $18.4 million in taxes, and then the 1.75% overall tax revenue increase, plus the 2.5% increase in the transit levy generates another $26.5 million. In developing the draft budget, one of our first tasks is to review the current year performance against budget, to identify any adjustments that need to be made to the base budget. We look at what happened in the previous year, where there were costs or revenue increases or decreases that we had not anticipated and that are of a permanent nature. This table shows the key factors that will contribute to the forecast deficit in 2015 and will have ongoing implications in 2016. Arbitrated settlements that exceeded last year's budget will result in an additional $7.5 million pressure. WSIB has also added more eligible illnesses, which have added an estimated ongoing pressure of $4 million. There's also a base adjustment of $4.5 million for winter operations to reflect the new normal. However, the recommended budget for 2016 also includes that implementation of operating efficiencies in winter operations that will help to offset these costs. Services that must operate on a 24/7 basis cannot achieve the same level of vacancy targets as other services, which adds a pressure of $1.5 million. Insurance costs have steadily increased each year, adding an additional pressure of $2 million, and increased bus maintenance costs of $8.6 million are also included in the ongoing pressures. Next, we identify the costs to maintain the services that we are already providing. Labor costs, as usual, are the largest increase overall, and this is to be expected given that the fact that the 48% of overall costs in the city are related to labor. The inflation on fuel, materials, and contracts is $8.8 million, which is net of the decrease in diesel fuel prices estimated for transit of approximately $1.2 million. The increase to reserves and debt charges is the inflationary increase in the contribution to capital to keep up with inflation and ensure that we are not losing ground in terms of what is needed for capital spending. $2.1 million of the $5.9 million increase goes towards debt charges. The total debt is projected to increase to $1.7 billion in 2016 from $1.6 billion this year. Côté croissance, nous avons alloué.
On the growth side, we allocated $9.6 million for the growth in 2016. This is found mostly in the increased cost in solid waste and household growth and the maintenance of new facilities and new parks in the city, and that comes under the Park and Maintenance Department. There will be an increase of $3.5 million for the police department, including the recruitment of 25 officers and some other new initiatives.
$4 million identified for council priorities. Firstly, there is $4.7 million that we set aside in the operating budget for the council priorities that represents the upload this year. Included in here are initiatives such as Ottawa 2017, Spark Street and Byward Market Renewal, along with service excellence initiatives. There is also a $5.4 million increase to your contribution to capital, which is the amount identified in the LRFP as an increase each year to address the infrastructure gap and to reach an investment level that maintains our assets in a state of good repair. In 2014, you approved the new DC rates, and as part of that, Council approved that when we provide exemptions for landowners for DC, the city would make up that contribution so that the DC reserves would have sufficient revenues in them to fund all the growth works needed. We started with $1.4 million in 2015 and are adding an additional $1.4 million in 2016. This table provides an overview of the total increase in the budget envelope from base adjustments, maintaining services, growth, and council priorities. $97.6 million in additional costs are included in this budget. This represents a 3.1% increase on the $3.165 billion budget. As mentioned earlier in the presentation, there's an additional funding of $60.6 million available from taxes, fees, and provincial funding, leaving a shortfall of $37 million. Solutions to address this shortfall can be categorized as follows: $17.4 million in operational efficiencies, $8.1 million in revenue adjustments, and $11.5 million in one-time funding from the fleet reserves. I will now describe each category a little bit further. As mentioned earlier, the contemplated operational efficiencies are not expected to have an impact on frontline service delivery. The pre-budget public consultation sessions and meetings with each councillor have provided input into this category. Staff have also identified some department-specific initiatives and corporate targets to improve efficiency and reduce costs. This slide highlights examples of initiatives identified so far. As mentioned in the Budget Direction Report, more analysis will be done throughout 2016 to identify other efficiency initiatives, some of which will begin to save FTEs and costs in 2016, but it is likely that the full implementation and realization of these savings from these initiatives will take more than a year into 2017 and 2018.
The shortfall is also compensated on the income coming in with the amount given for income for the taxes. In Hydro Ottawa, the staff also found opportunities to impose new fees, for instance, in providing services, existing services to other municipalities, or imposing additional fees for special services.
In the Budget Direction Report, the budget pressures in 2016 exceed the efficiency savings that could be achieved in such a short time frame. Therefore, one-time funds would be used from the Fleet and Equipment Reserve Fund, and replacement of these assets would be done on an exception basis. $11.5 million will help fund the shortfall in 2016 and $6.7 million in 2017. The rate increase is 6%, so if you take last year's budgeted revenue and increased it by 6%, you would generate an additional $16.4 million. However, we have reduced the consumption estimate that is in the rate budget to be closer to what we actually experienced in consumption volumes over the past several years, which means that we are only generating an additional $4.5 million to cover the $3.1 million cost of maintaining services and $1.5 million cost of growth, or just enough to cover the increase in the debt servicing. For this reason, this year we have had to reduce the capital contribution by $2.9 million. This means that more capital funding is coming from debt and less from cash. That is not in line with where you need to be as per the LRFP. This is an asset-intensive service, and it is for this reason that we are reviewing the rate structure to provide more stability to the revenues, considering that such a significant percentage of the costs are fixed costs, but the water rate is 100% volumetric. The results of the rate review will be presented to Committee and Council in the first quarter of 2016. In the last term of Council, several major studies were completed and approved by Council. They include Transportation Master Plan, the 2014 Development Charges Background Study, the LRFP4, that assessed the state of repairs of all the capital assets and recommended a plan for closing the infrastructure funding gap. These plans have all been incorporated in the proposed capital budget for 2016 and the forecast for the subsequent 3 years. We also have the funding envelope for Council priorities. The $4.7 million that was set aside for operating is not all that you have to spend on priorities. In the previous term of Council, there was a $20 million envelope set aside for strategic initiatives on the capital side. Debt is being used in this budget as described in the fiscal framework within the limits established by Council. We are at 5.7% on own source revenues on the tax side and 11.3% on the rate side. Furthermore, the roads growth program has been reviewed and adjusted to reflect the current and projected economic situation, which has seen a slowdown in housing growth, resulting in lower development charge revenues. The tax-supported capital budget for 2016 includes public transit, police services, and library. The budget totals $302 million. The capital budget for water and sewer programs stands at $231.4. The capital budget is mainly required for renewal of infrastructure, and for water and sewer, that represents about 74% of the rate capital budget. The proposed $533.5 million in capital budget is funded from a variety of sources, but basically it is cash and debt. You have the reserves portion, which is cash, and is funded from contributions to capital on both the tax and the rate side. This makes up 48% of the funding for capital. There's also some DC cash and debt to fund growth projects. $43.6 million is coming from other levels of government. For some of the public transit infrastructure projects proposed in this budget, we have included an assumption of 2/3 government funding. In 2016, when availability is clarified, the possibility of considering other projects for this stimulus funding will be explored. In total, there's $172 million in new debt authority that is required to fund the proposed 2016 capital program. $163.6 million is for the rate and tax-supported capital, and $8.2 million is DC debt. That $172 million in debt is still in line with what was approved in previous years. Lastly, on the budget timetable, we have the budget meetings scheduled on the 23rd, running until December 7th. It is at these meetings that individuals can ask about particular items in the budget. All the information is available on the website, and the public is invited to come out to a committee meeting to discuss what is of concern to them. To provide comments on the draft budget, residents can email budget2016@ottawa.ca or contact their local ward councillor. Council will meet on December 9th to consider the draft budget and any recommendations stemming from the budget meetings, and then it is at that point the budget will be adopted. In conclusion, Mr. Mayor, I want to offer my thanks to senior management and staff that have supported this budget process, and in particular the finance staff. I want to send my heartfelt appreciation to the finance teams led by Brian Flynn and the planning team led by Tom Fedek for all the great work that they do. I also want to thank Marion Simulek for her leadership, guidance, and direction throughout the budgeting process. I think I can speak for the entire finance team and say we miss her and we wish her a speedy recovery. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Isabel. So next is number 2, Canada 150 Community Infrastructure Program Projects and Strategic Initiatives. Yeah. So this is, the recommendation is to table and refer the report on Canada 150 infrastructure program. Carried. Committee of Adjustment 2016 draft operating estimates, receive and table. Carried. Crime Prevention Ottawa 2016 draft operating budget, receive and table. Carried. Director Human Resources FTE analysis report to receive. Now we have Ottawa Police Services. Councillor El Shantiri as Chair, and Chief Bordelot and Deborah Fraser, Director General. If they could take a seat at the end, and we have a presentation by the Chair and the Chief and the Director General.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I promise my speech won't be as long as yours. Just to line up, it's a budget day, folks. I'm joined today, Mr. Mayor, by Chief Chuck Bordelot and Director General to my far right, Deborah Fraser. Early this morning, we tabled our budget on the police board. We received it, and I want to say thank you to my colleague, the community member, and also my colleague Jan Harder and Tim Turney for their support and leadership on the budget. I'm pleased to announce, Mr. Mayor, that aligned with the Council's direction for 1.75 police tax rate increase, the budget tabling comes at a time when our external survey tells us that the vast majority of Ottawa residents have a high level of satisfaction with the services provided by the Ottawa Police Service. It is gratifying to see the community recognize and appreciate the professionalism of our members and the hard work they do each day. You will see that in this budget we will be making investment to support our members by addressing both the workload and the well-being. We are also investing in information and technology infrastructure that our members need to serve the community as policing becomes more complex. Generating efficiency of $2 million is one of the ways that the budget target has been achieved. Setting priority has also been key to this budget process. It has meant that some plans, such as projects in the facility strategic plan, have been necessarily delayed without affecting the community safety. I'd like to thank Chief Bordelot for his leadership and his team for the work they've done in this proposal and the path it maps out for the future. Now I'll turn it to the Chief for a short presentation, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Monsieur le Maire, membre du Conseil, c'est un...
Mr. Mayor, member of this council, I'm very pleased to be here today to present our 2016 budget.
My team that put together this budget, led by Director General Deborah Fraser, our Acting Director of Finance, Wally Salem, Valerie McCallum, Sheila Hamilton, Jonathan Sweet, Owen Bell, Krista Ferraro, and Heather Fisher. And also my executive, with Deborah Fraser, Jill Skinner, and Ed Keeley, and our senior leadership team. So we're pleased to present this year's draft operating and capital budget. It follows the direction that was given by board and council of a 1.7% tax rate increase. And as Chair El Shantiri indicated, there's a theme around supporting our members in dealing with the workload and dealing with their wellness. Some of the highlights include the addition of 25 new sworn officer positions and an investment in our Ottawa Police Wellness Program to support our members, including our Real You program. We'll be one of the first police services in Canada to work with the Canadian Mental Health Commission to align and to follow the standards associated with employee wellness. And this follows on a very difficult year in 2014 following the suicide of one of our members. It was frankly quite a wake-up call to ensure that we are there to support our wellness and our members. We had to find efficiencies and expenditure reductions to meet the targets to make these investments. And one of the critical elements in achieving our budget target is the $2 million in forecasted efficiencies from items such as the service initiative. And we also drew on some of the strategies that the city is using, including one-time project funding in this budget. And you'll also see in this budget includes investments in our MIT roadmap to ensure that we have the right infrastructure in place to support the officers and give them the tools that they need to be proactive in identifying crime patterns. We are anticipating a provincial grant loss of approximately $600,000, which works out to 5 FTEs, and we've built this into the budget. And should this occur, we will work with the Police Service Board on a plan to address this shortfall. Prioritization was an important factor, and we did make a decision to delay our facility strategic plan by 1 year in order to make sure that we are investing in our people. And throughout this budget, we were very focused on ensuring that we were fiscally responsible. And we made the investment given the environment that we are working in. Our budget takes into account the policing context that we're working in. It's meant to help address the pressures and challenges that we are facing. There are a number of factors impacting the increasing cost and complexity of policing. Not only is the Ottawa Police Service facing these pressures, services across Ontario and, in fact, Canada are facing complexity that is ever-changing. And it is a challenging environment to manage. It's not about just crime rates going down and calls for service going down. It's seeing trends increasing in other areas. Our demographics are changing. We have an aging population, which brings about a complexity in investigating crimes regarding elder abuse. There's also different crime and disorder issues that are emerging, such as cybercrime, multi-jurisdictional investigations, and human trafficking. The role of police officers continues to evolve, and we need to shed some of those responsibilities that we've taken on over time that are not core policing duties. We're often referred to as the last service of resort, and we've become the first service of resort based on our 24/7 capacity. And that's why we've launched our service initiative. We presented to the Ottawa Police Service Board in October some of the work that's associated with that initiative, and there's an ongoing need to examine how we deliver our service to become more effective and efficient. And we need to have a policing model that is adaptable and flexible to our changing environment. I want to highlight that despite the complex policing environment, our members continue to deliver quality policing services, and I'm very proud of the work that they do each and every day. And we continue to be responsive to the concerns of residents. And we've always adapted our changing environment and changed to the community, and we will continue to do so. As I became chief, 3 operational priorities were set in place, dealing with the guns and gangs, violence against women, and traffic safety. And those resonates with our members and the community. And our most recent public survey showed that the public has a high satisfaction with the policing services they are receiving, the members, and that the ability of them to keep our community safe. But policing, like all other city services, comes at a cost. Since 2012, when I became chief, the financial environment has continued to change, and we recognize the need to look at how we are doing business. We examined where we could find more efficiencies to become more effective to address some of the financial pressures that we were facing. Between 2013 and 2016, we've achieved over $7.7 million of efficiencies, all the while having no growth in our members. We've also introduced some transformational projects, including our collision reporting centers, online reporting for members of the public. We've transferred our payroll function to the City of Ottawa, and for that I'm very thankful for the cooperation we've received from city staff. And we're moving to an online format for our background checks. We've reviewed a number of areas within our service for efficiencies and found opportunities within our fleet services, resulting in $0.8 million of savings to date. And finally, as I said, we've launched our service initiative, a program that's assigned with the delivering ongoing and future cost savings for our police service. Adjustments aren't always about scaling back. Sometimes you have to invest, and we prioritize our investments needed to be in this budget. And part of that prioritization was based on our unique context in the City of Ottawa, and I'd like to go over that quickly. We are the nation's capital. and we need to ensure operational readiness to deal with a wide array of public safety issues, from protests to demonstrations to much larger threats. We saw that reality come forth October 22nd last year. In addition, Ottawa 2017 will pose another set of challenges as tourists visit the nation's capital for a wide variety of celebrations. And effective 2018, Canada Day celebrations will be moving off Parliament Hill, which will have a significant impact on our police service to deal with a new location yet to be determined, and we'll work with Canadian Heritage to deal with those issues. There have been a number of demographic and societal changes in our community that is having a continuing impact on policing. Our population by 2021 will increase to over 1.1 million people. It is also an aging population, with the people over 65 expected to more than double between 2014 and 2031. And individuals want to age in their homes, and they need to be supported. From a diversity perspective, 1 in 4 residents in Ottawa is an immigrant. We are the 4th largest visible minority population among Canadian cities. That brings about tremendous opportunities as well as challenges. We've all heard about the issue about mental health in our community. We continue to see an increasing number of calls for service dealing with people with mental health issues. It's estimated that 40% of those incidents are not criminal in nature, and those are not issues that are easily resolved. The timing of our budget is a good one because we are in the process of developing our 2016 to 2018 business plan. We have three pillars in our business plan: our members, the community we serve, and the service we are providing. And the budget also takes into account the ongoing priorities around guns and gangs, violence against women, and traffic safety. These resonate with our community and were highlighted in our public safety, in our public survey. The alignment of the budget with our business plan and the Chief's operational priorities continue to allow us to target resources to meet the challenges and our budget objectives. I'll now turn it over to Deborah Fraser for the numbers.
Thank you, Chief. My job is to try and translate the backdrop that you've heard into the $7.2 million operating envelope that the board is tabling with Council, which meets the 1.75% tax increase. And we know that the 1.75% number sometimes gets spoken about in the public domain as a 2% increase on the residential tax rate, so both numbers are accurate when you hear them. Our budget story is a very simple one this year. The total $7.2 million, that is the increase in the police tax rate. Most of it, the lion's share of $6 million, is going to maintain our services. And by that we mean that that envelope will cover the cost of future salary increases. It provides fuel and maintenance for our fleet vehicles. It ensures the cost of keeping the heat and lights on at our police facilities. And it also provides $1 million for the new health initiatives that we're undertaking on behalf of our members. The addition of 25 officers to deal with workload for our members, combined with health initiatives to support our members, is what's critical for us right now. We know from the suicide that occurred within our police service last year that health and wellness is critical to succeeding in policing, and we've been working very hard to identify the elements of a program like that to help Ottawa succeed. We know the evidence points to dealing with workload as well as dealing with mental and physical health issues within the police service, and that's what our plan will do. The efficiencies of $2 million that we've identified will help offset the impact of the 25 officer costs. We're trying to find funds within the budget to offset that impact. It will also help to offset the cost of bringing on the IMIT roadmap. That's the investment in technology that we'll be making over the next 5 to 6 years to provide the new technology environment, both on the information side and on the technical tool side, that our officers need in order to work in this increasingly complex environment. The project will launch in 2016 after we table it with our Police Services Board in December. As the the board chair remarked, we've had to make some choices this year. This budget is a matter of making priorities. So you'll see that some of what we've done is we've drawn $1 million out of our capital reserve fund to finance some projects in 2016. They will be projects that help to transform the police service. The chief listed some earlier in the presentation, and they also deliver benefits. Those are things that will help to reduce the bottom line of the police services budget, or introduce new partnerships through which we can work and achieve some of these complex problems, or actually help to improve service levels to the public. The final thing that we've done is adjust the user fees and charges through a policy that the board has. We keep them running at the rate of increases in inflation or the tax rate. That will add about $250,000 to our bottom line, bringing the total operational budget to $7.2 million. We have postponed some aspects of our facility strategic plan by 1 year, and we'll be looking at any kind of innovative way we can to try and keep that as much on target as we can. As a result of a recommendation by the Auditor General, the Police Service tables a 3-year forecast. This is the way we look now. As we look forward for 3 years, you'll see a couple of constant themes. The IMIT roadmap is there for 3 years as we continue to make investments to support our members and the tools they need. The Service Initiative and other efficiency targets will bring $2 million of savings into the budget to help offset the IMIT roadmap plan, as well as our plan to deliver 25 officers ending in 2018. We revisit this plan each year as we formulate the budgets to try and keep it up to date, but it's meant to help identify for council, for board members and our stakeholders the forward-looking plans that the police service has. The capital budget is a fairly straightforward one as well for 2016. It's $16.4 million. Half of that amount is going to ensure that our existing asset platform is maintained in terms of fleet, IT infrastructure, and facilities. The other half, roughly $9.1 million, is dedicated to strategic initiatives. That's the launch of the IMIT roadmap. Again, the board has been forward-looking at how it's funded these projects and developed pay-as-you-go reserve funds. So almost all of that program will be funded from pay-as-you-go reserve funds, a smaller part from revenue that comes from the sale of fleet assets. Mr. Mayor, that concludes our presentation. We thank you for the opportunity to share our plans with you, and we're happy to take any questions.
Great. Thank you very much. These are, again, of a general nature, not getting into the specifics. That's done at committee level. Councillor Eglai, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try and keep my question to that. In a general way, following on the Mayor's comments regarding speeding in traffic and yours, Chiefs, that it's a strategic priority for you. Again, I don't need to know the specifics of how many or how much, but can we expect that if the budget is approved and you get 25 new officers, that some of those resources will be directed towards dealing with speeding in traffic in the communities?
Worship, what I can tell you is that traffic enforcement, traffic education is a responsibility of every member of the police service that's out there working on the road. We have specialty traffic units and district traffic officers that's their sole focus. But the focus will continue to be very proactive in traffic enforcement and dealing with the numerous response and complaints that we get from the community with respect to different areas of the city. We've been very successful in dealing with councillors and our partners in identifying where the problem spots are and prioritizing them and putting the resources where they need to be. I'm also very pleased to see the council direction that there's going to be an increase in red light cameras at key intersections. But certainly we are very big proponents of technology that's out there that could help us change driver behavior.
So I'm going to take from that answer that it's no.
We'll be going to deal with high-risk areas, guns and gangs, violence against women, specifically around our partner assault unit and our sexual abuse unit, and also dealing with the high number of accommodations that policing is seeing with respect to accommodating people with medical injuries where they can't do the work on the front lines, resulting in shortages. So the first year of the plan, the 25 officers will be targeting towards those three areas, but you have my assurance that traffic enforcement and traffic safety will continue to be a top priority.
A top priority, but there'll be no new resources, is what you're saying.
Following our service initiative, where we are redeploying our officers where we need to be. So perhaps under the service initiative, you'll see a realignment of resources towards that type of priority.
Please keep me posted on that.
Thank you. Councillor Cloutier, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. Madame Fraser.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Madam Fraser, Chief Bordelot.
We're looking at 25 new officers per year at about, for the next 3 years, $2.1 million a year, and efficiencies of $2 million a year in all those years. Can you let us know, given that members' salaries are the highest cost element of the police force, what will those efficiencies look like? What will they be?
In 2016, we're identifying $2 million worth of efficiencies within the police service to help fund those officers. There's areas around increasing revenues from our paid duties, and the other areas around the generalities of office supplies, or IMIT strategy. We're looking at some property leases. We're looking at some changes to our bandwidth. So they're coming from across the police service. We always try and forecast 3 years out from a staffing perspective, and that's why we've identified a total of 75 officers over the next 3 years. But like we did for 2016, those resources will come at the expense of efficiencies that we're finding, and we'll be able to fund those within our budget envelope.
Thank you.
Merci. Councillor Brockington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good morning. Thank you to the Chair and to the Chief as well for the presentation. 2 quick questions. The FTE increases, is that what you need or is that what you can afford?
We feel that is a responsible approach to dealing with staffing shortages that we currently have, increased workloads and high-risk areas that we're identifying at this point for 2016. What we're also doing is within the police service is identifying 20 other positions within the police service, sworn officer positions, that we'll be able to reallocate to other areas of the police service that we're finding some pressures on. We look at our human trafficking unit, part of our street crime unit. Those areas are currently being staffed by officers that are not in full-time equivalent positions. So those 25 efficiencies across the police service will go towards those types of areas where the work has been done for a number of years, that there's tremendous value in doing that work. So that will help offset some of the risks areas that we're finding.
Thank you. And I just wanted to underline that the #1 safety issue in my ward is the speed of traffic. And that we've seen a reduction of resources and attention in the ward and perhaps in other wards this year. And I just want to underline Councillor Eglei's point, and I'm sure that we need greater attention from the OPS with respect to traffic and sport enforcement and issues. We know that one of the units that touches River Ward was redeployed earlier this year. It's redeployed again this autumn, and the resources that we need for this function need to be increased. I understand, but I need to underline this. It's extremely important.
The rules are clear. Do you have any other questions of a general nature?
Sure.
We'll have lots of time to debate it. Okay.
When will Council be debating at budget time only, when this comes at December 9th?
At the Police Services Board.
I'm already registered to speak.
As you know, we can either vote for or against the budget. We can't change it. So
understood.
If you want to appear before the Police Services Board, you're entitled to do that as a citizen. Okay, thank you. Councillor Nussbaum, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the Chief and to Councillor El-Shantiri for the presentation. Just a couple of questions of clarification. In your response to the question posed by Councillor Cloutier, I was just left a little bit confused about the total number of new hires. Over the next 3 years, is it 25 new officers in total, or is it 25 officers each year for the next 3 years?
Forecast estimates that we want, we will grow our service by a total of 75 officers over the next 3 years, 25 each year.
Okay, thank you. And then, again, because the charts were only flashed briefly, I'm not sure I have this right. For 2016, you're anticipating that the 25 new officers would create a budget pressure of $1.3 million. Is what I thought I saw on the screen, or an average of $52,000 an officer. And then in 2017 and 2018, I thought I saw the numbers 2.1 and 2.1 for new officers, but I guess what I'm not understanding is if by 2017 there are 50 new officers and then by 2018 there are 75 new officers, the numbers 2.1 seem awfully small to reflect 75 new their annual salaries and pension and other costs of 75 new officers. So what I'm trying to understand, and if this is too specific, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to take this offline, but just what you anticipate by 2018, the budget pressure of 75 new officers being.
Mr. Mayor, the budget pressure is captured in two lines. The first year pressure is for the new officers is captured on the 25 officers line. As those members are annualized and they move up an increment in their salary scale, that moves up into the maintained services category. So it's actually split between two categories. We'd be happy to go offline and explain how the mathematics are done here.
Thank you. That might be helpful. And my last question is, again, it was only up briefly, but I thought I saw an anticipated budget increase in 2017 and 2018 of over 2%. I thought I saw 2.75. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Worship. The projected forecast for 2017 is 2.7%, 2018 2.5%, and 2019 1.9%. And that's the approach we forecast out, and same thing as we did last year. And then we, when it comes budget time, we look at what the targets here and see what we can do to achieve those targets.
Okay, so the 2.75 forecast assumes a hiring by 2017 of 50 new officers. And thank you.
Correct.
Yeah, thank you, Mr.
Thank you. Thank you very much, our colleagues from police. And
just, Mr. Mayor, if I may, I mean, we had a number of discussions with some of my colleagues. I agree the traffic is still, whether it comes to the police board or for us as a council, still the number one complaint about the traffic. And last year, as you heard me time and time again saying, we are pulling some of the officer to support the guns and gang units. So obviously something has to give in, and obviously the traffic or the patrol area has seen those numbers or pushed some of those numbers to the guns and gang, and that's why we were very successful with the guns and gang, but other area has suffered a little bit, and that's why with the 25, when people can go back to their position, hopefully the traffic unit will be back on the road like we're supposed to be. But if I can invite all my colleagues to come to our board meeting on November 3rd, is because I believe, Mr. Mayor, as I heard from the Deputy Treasurer, you're not going to have a debate here on Budget Day. So any question of this nature will be welcome to come to the police board. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Recommendation receive and table, carried. Next item is Ottawa Public Library, 2016 budget estimates, Bibliothèque Publique d'Ottawa. Councillor Tierney as chair of the board, and Danielle MacDonald, CEO.
Good morning, Your Worship and members of Council. I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to present the Ottawa Public Library Board's 2016 draft budget today. First of all, this wonderful photo that's up here is actually of our new Constance Bay branch. I grew up in that village. I remember it quite clearly, and it never looked anything like that. So I think that's some good work that we provided within the community. That was for you, Eli. So this budget presentation will include the 2016 draft operating and capital budget for OPL. It will also include a request for further planning requirements for the Central Library Development Project. The OPL total 2016 budget is $46.297 million. This includes the $1.041 million in additional funding and City Council target. This also includes $935,000 for life cycle maintenance. The table in front of you right now, it provides the details on how OPL will allocate and spend the $1.041 million target and the operating impact requirements for the Central Library Development Project. The biggest share of the target goes towards the cost of living adjustment and inflationary costs to staff, so that's OPL in the city, to run our 33 branches and other services. So a quick breakdown, it's for other services, $815,000, OPL, $730,000, and for the city component, $85,000. Housekeeping matters, such as maintaining materials handling accounts, is $85,000. We also have one-time pressures of training, life cycle, etc., for $295,000. The Central Library project planning impact on operation budget involves allocating funds and operating increases the pay-go. More details on the Central Library project will be in future slides. The 2016 capital fund will be spent in 3 categories: renewal of city assets to maintain and service our 33 locations, strategic initiatives to move the board's strategic priorities forward. That includes the RFID, putting it in place in our 10 remaining branches, as well as technology lifecycle, including public accessible workstations. And finally, growth. The funds will be used to refresh our facilities growth study that will align with our 2014 development charges bylaw. The final component is to request to fund the future planning requirements for the Central Library Development Project. This is a key strategic initiative for both the Ottawa Public Library and City Council. Funding requests have been developed in conjunction with the city planners, or with our city partners in finance, REPTO, supply, ISD, etc. And based on the intelligence and lessons learned on other city capital projects, such as Art Court. In order to advance this initiative, in 2016, the funding requirement is $3.9 million. OPL has found $1 million, and that's detailed within the slide. OPL is requesting the city fund the balance of the $2.9 million. So if you're looking at the key funding, that's the stakeholder engagement, the procurement process, RFQ, RFP, further detailed design work, and financial analysis. So in closing, this is a very straightforward budget. It meets the City Council's target for OPL. It maintains the existing staffing complement with no cuts in service, and at the same time advances the key strategic initiatives for the Board and Council. And before I wrap up and say thank you, I do want to pay special thanks to our staff, Danielle McDonald and all the staff in the OPL. They've really looked under all the couch cushions, found what we could, and I'm proud of the fiscal responsibility exercised within the OPL. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor Tierney. Councillor Kakish, please. General nature.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Chair Tierney and Mrs. McDonald as well. I just have a quick question in terms of the Central Library development and in terms of the funding that we're allocating. You know, on the one hand, we have our city manager and everyone talking about efficiencies and chasing dollars and cents, and then, you know, I see here Nanos Research undertake public opinion and research and engagement strategy. So I do have concerns with that, and perhaps we can talk offline about it. But it seems that everyone's talking about efficiencies, and we're doing everything we can to do that, and then we're also seeing one of the top pollsters being hired to do this. So just a note for the chair and the CEO.
Great. Thank you for that, Councillor. And I think a lot of the direction that we've taken in our budget is directly from what our board has requested. Those surveys, our board has deemed them as necessary. And just keep in mind, if we do nothing with this building, we've already made the decision to go ahead with this project, it would be $20 million to stay where we are in the bunker. And I think we've made a really great decision as a City Council to go ahead with this, but I'll definitely take those comments in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And just one quick follow-up in terms of the engagement in the public working sessions that we had just outside over here in the spring, I think. How are those different than this particular public opinion and stakeholder engagement?
And that is actually a very good question. I'll allow our CEO to elaborate on it, but before that, the one that we did run here at City Hall, it really dealt with the inside and the use of the spaces. What we're looking at is something that came out of our board. Actually, I think it was Trustee Wilkinson actually really requested more in-depth surveys to take place. I'll allow the CEO to further elaborate on that.
Thank you, Chair. Essentially, a project of this kind requires a lot of public engagement. There's a huge requirement that has been expressed to us from the public. They expect us to continue to communicate with them. So that is something that we've built into the budget. It begins with getting the data requested from the board through the NANOS work and to inform us to get into the other stages of the project, RFQ, RFP. But we definitely have the public interested and wanting to be engaged, and that is why those dollars have been allocated to that portion of the budget.
Okay, thank you. I'll take the conversation offline with the chair as well, and I want to thank him and Danielle McDonald as well for all their work on this project. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Kakish. Councillor Shirelli, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. In discussions with media over the past couple of years, I know media have expected materials budgets to decline because of the drift toward electronic materials. But I know there are reasons why that isn't happening, and it's frustrating to the library community, but maybe if you could just outline why that general situation exists right now.
Thank you for that, Councillor Shirelli. Last council, actually, we, with the support of this council through the mayor, are sending a letter to our friends in Heritage because we do have a problem when it comes to e-books. We hear time and time again about, well, why aren't we just going to e-books? Even if we wanted to, and I'm not suggesting that we do want to do that, because we do have people that do like their physical copies of books, we simply couldn't afford to. A book that may come in a traditional print format that we put in our shelves may cost only $15, maybe $20. If we want to do the exact same thing in the electronic world, that same book could be $85, $100, $120. So thank you for highlighting that, and over time, hopefully with the assistance of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, where our e-books motion is going, we can actually pressure the federal government into changing their copyright rules to actually help us increase our e-book selection.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Shirelli. Thank you very much, Chair Tierney and Ms. McDonald. The recommendation is receive and table. Carried. Items 1, 2, and 3. Ottawa Board of Health, Councillor Caudry has a presentation with our Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Levy. We welcome Dr. Levy to City Council and to Chair Caudry, please.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and my council colleagues. As Chair of the Board of Health, it is my pleasure this morning to present the budget for 2016 as a draft budget. Bonjour, et titre de président de
As Chair of the Ottawa Health Board, I'm pleased to present the draft operating budget for 2016 of the Ottawa Board of Health.
The Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Levy.
We'll just wait. I think there was a problem with one of the projectors.
Thank you.
There we go. Go ahead.
There we are. The Board of Health is presenting a balanced budget of $59.0 million. If approved, the budget will represent a funding provision of $12.6 million from the city, an increase of $300,000 over 2015, and $46.4 million from the provincial government and other revenue sources. The 2016 budget aligns with the city's guideline for 2016 budget development and reflects a balanced approach based on best information and judgment on revenues that OPH expects to receive to address emerging needs. This includes a $1.2 million increase from the provincial government on cost-shared programs and no increase on 100% funded programs. As has been in the past, OPH has undertaken a review of its programs and services. In doing so, OPH has identified efficiencies and other saving measures in areas such as advertising and external purchase of services. Through this process, staff at all levels in the organization identified efficiencies and resources to reinvest in the most critical community health needs and frontline services. For 2016, OPH is recommending strategic investments that ensure the efficient and effective delivery of public health programs and services. Specifically for 2016, OPH is recommending the following strategic investments. A $280,000 investment to enhance public health inspection capacities related to infection prevention and control practices, monitoring, outbreak management, disclosures, and training in long-term care facilities, retirement homes, and the community. A $200,000 one-time investment to foster mental health in our community through initiatives related to suicide awareness, reducing stigma, and promoting workplace mental health. A $120,000 investment to increase capacity to identify, investigate, and manage environmental health hazards in the community and to conduct surveillance. Address long-range financial pressures due to IT requirements that are used by OPH in the delivery of client care and services. These investments will help to ensure the provisions of public health programs and services that meet the needs of residents and communities in Ottawa. In 2016, OPH staff will continue to deliver the high quality of programs and services residents have come to rely on. This will be achieved through an ongoing program and operational reviews so that emergency community needs can be addressed and met. OPH looks forward to its continued role in advancing health promotion, disease prevention, and health protection in 2016 and beyond. Members of the public are welcome to provide comments on the draft budget until the next Board of Health meeting on December 7th, as well as at the board meeting itself. At this time, I would like to thank the board, public health members for the Board of Health, as well as the team behind the Board of Health in terms of Dr. Levy and his staff, as well as my council colleagues that sit on the board also. Thank you, and merci. Ready for questions.
Merci, Conseiller. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Levy, are there any questions of a general nature to the delegation? Okay, thank you. So the recommendation is receive and table as presented, items 1 and 2. Carried. Okay, so now we're back to the City Deputy Treasurer, as well as the City Manager and Deputy City Managers for questions of a general nature on the budget. Councillor Nussbaum, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the City Manager and Deputy City Treasurer for their presentation. I just had some questions related to the budget envelope submissions. It was slide 15 of the original presentation.
Councillor, can you speak up a little? It's hard to hear.
I'm referring to slide 15 in the Deputy Treasurer's presentation, which listed a series of operational efficiencies which are going to be found in the context of the 2016 budget to the tune of $17.4 million. And then the next line says that these efficiencies will not impact frontline services and departmental efficiency targets to be achieved through a review of how current services are delivered. So my question really is, I had understood when we had this conversation at budget directions that Council would have a sense before voting on the budget of what the $17.4 million in operational efficiencies would be. And I thought that the answer was we would have that sense. We don't have it in this deck. I'm just wondering at what point in the coming weeks will we get a sense of how those $17.4 million will be achieved? Because, again, that's what I had understood we were going to receive over the course of this budget process. Thank you.
Just on that, Councillor, that information is in the large document that's been sent electronically to everyone's office. So, Mr. Kirkpatrick, does that...
Mr. Mayor, the councillor is correct. You did make that expectation known at the time the guidelines were considered. And so there is more information in the transmittal document. But it's still at, I'd say, not a detailed level. The approach that we're recommending, and we're telling general managers that they are to be prepared to speak to their budget submission at the standing committees in detail, and that would include more detail about where they will be looking to find the efficiency targets that they've been allocated within these summary categories.
Okay, just so that I'm clear. So, again, on slide 16, where you identify a few subject areas, winter operation efficiency, contracting out ironworks, advertising reduction, street lighting, LED conversion, and reduction to admin costs, those are going to be articulated by staff at the committee budget discussions. And so, and those amounts will add up to $17.4 million. So, committee members will have an opportunity then to get into detail about how each of these subject areas will achieve the required savings to get to 17.4. Is that correct?
That is correct, and part of that discussion I would anticipate is how that will be able to be accomplished without affecting frontline service delivery.
Okay, and will that be written down somewhere? I'm just thinking about the residents of the city. Will they have a sense? Will they be able to look before they appear at an actual meeting? Will they get a sense of where those cuts are expected to be found?
So, Mr. Mayor, I just as by way of example, so for instance, about $4.5 of the $10.5 million in operating efficiencies, that is, you'll see there on page 15 under city services. So a strategy there is that we've looked at 5 or 6 accounts that we believe are more discretionary. So these are purchase services, consultants, that kind of thing. We've looked at what the total budget for those accounts are across the corporation, and we've assigned a reduction target of 15% of those accounts against departments. So, for instance, when Mr. Wiley's in front of his committee, he would be speaking to how he will absorb a 15% reduction in those accounts without affecting service delivery.
Okay, so there won't be a written explanation of what those are. That will be an oral discussion.
We could provide, well, there is details, the Mayor said in the document. We could provide a primer, if you will, that would identify at the higher category how we're targeting these allocations. But the level of detail, I would say, I would recommend you'd want to hear that directly from the general managers at the standing committees.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And just to follow up on that, the direction was that all of these reductions are not to affect frontline services. So they're very much internal expenditures, travel, conferences, those kinds of things. Is that correct, Mr. Kirkpatrick?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'm confident that members of council, when they see the detail at committee, will find that these are targeted and will be able to be achieved without affecting frontline service delivery.
And where they fall in each department is in the big binder that has been sent. I believe all members of council have that electronically now, Madam Deputy Treasurer? They do. The clerk
That's correct.
confirms that. Okay, thank you. Councillor Cloutier, s'il vous plaît.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
My question has to do with the debt and the reserves. The debt will go from 1.6 to 1.7 billion, and we're adding, I believe, and I'm sorry I didn't note the slide number, $163 million in new debt.
It was 172 million. 163 of it was from tax and rate, and the other
9.
The remainder is from DC debt.
So we are paying older debt.
So this is the new debt authority coming with this budget. So all the capital projects that are included in the budget for 2016 have 172 million worth of debt attached to it as a source of funding.
But our overall level of debt is rising $100 million.
So the overall level of debt is due to the fact that we're going to be issuing $175 million in new debt next year as part of the proposed budget, and we're retiring approximately $98 million of principal. So the net increase in the debt is around $77 million.
Okay. And could you give me just and I know the details will be in the details, but for the reserves, overall the reserves, what is the movement on the city's reserves as a result of this operations budget?
So those details are included as part of this transmittal report, as part of document 2, and you'll see the details for the reserves there. But we're starting a 2016 opening uncommitted balance of about $234 million and ending the year projected at $297 million.
Thank you. Can you give me the percentage of interest costs versus revenue? Do you have that, just as a high level, what our interest cost percentage is?
Interest as a percentage?
The cost of interest, the cost of servicing the debt, which last year was $87 million.
Yeah, it's approximately that. Again, for the tax, we keep it very even year to year. The rate will be increasing slightly. So it is around $80 million.
It's around still $80 million. Yeah. Okay. And we don't expect this to have any impact on the city's credit rating from our major credit rating partners or agencies?
Not the 2016 budget. What we do provide to credit agencies is 3 years out also. So now that we have the 2018 numbers in there, they will be looking at those numbers in terms of our overall credit rating, looking at what we're projecting in terms of capital funding. And some of the transit costs are showing up in the 2018 numbers.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So on the recommendations as presented on page 3 of the agenda, items 1, 2, and 3, carried. Motion to adopt reports. Motion portant adoption de rapport. Councillor Eglai, please.
That the report from the Director of Human Resources entitled FTE Analysis Report, Information Supplemental to Budget Estimates, the report from the City Clerk and Solicitor entitled Status Update, Council Inquiries and Motions for the period ending 6 November 2015, Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee Report, Built Heritage Subcommittee Report 1, Finance and Economic Development Committee Report 9, Planning Committee Report 16A, and Transportation Committee Report 9 be received and adopted as amended.
On the motion, carried, adopté. Motions of which notice have been previously given. Motion dont avis a été donné entièrement. Councillor Tierney, please. Seconded by Councillor Hubley.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll dispense with reading the complete motion. I've circulated and spoken to many members of council. I see lots of support. I'll give you the highline of it, though, before I read the therefore it be resolved clause. The National Zero Waste Council has been working with many different cities, not just us, to lobby the federal government to create tax incentives for food producers and suppliers. Toronto, Edmonton, Calgary, and others have also jumped on board passing or in process of passing similar resolutions that will see incentives given to these producers, and the federal government can figure out how that is. The short of it is, when life cycle runs out on certain fruits and vegetables, it's from a dollars and cents point of view, it's hard for business to justify putting it in a truck, paying people to drive it over to a food bank or another place like that, and we're going to create that opportunity and give incentive instead of throwing out good food. So therefore it be resolved that the City of Ottawa Council provide a letter of support to the National Zero Waste Council food waste reduction proposal, asking the federal government to introduce a policy which implements a tax incentive for food producers and suppliers who donate their unsold edibles foods, therefore by reducing the unnecessary food waste, decreasing disposal costs to municipalities, reducing environmental impact of waste food, and addressing issues of hunger and poverty in our communities. And be it further resolved that City Council direct this resolution be forwarded to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities for consideration at its annual general meeting.
On the motion, carried. Thank you, Councillor Tierney. Motions requiring suspension of the rules of procedure. Councillor Kakish has a motion seconded by Councillor Cloutier on the Strategic Branch Review Program on waiving the rules. Carried. Councillor Kakish.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I did circulate the motion yesterday. Did you want me to read it? It is a bit lengthy, or just do the therefore?
Or maybe just summarize what you're looking to do, Councillor, and that would be helpful.
Okay, so this motion, Mr. Mayor, was drafted with the assistance of the City Manager's Office and Deputy City Clerk to avoid redundancy and provide clear direction to staff. With any $3 billion organization, there are always efficiencies that can be found, especially with internally facing services and programs. We worked with staff in the City Manager's Office and Deputy City Clerk to draft a motion that is complementary to Councillor Egly's and both broadens and focuses the administrative review set out in his direction to staff at FETCO. The motion does a number of things, including reviewing internally facing programs and services to find efficiencies in an area where the city could trim back, such as consultant and certain administrative positions throughout the organization. The motion also asks to put in place an ongoing challenge function for these services and programs, with potential to have external individuals from those services and programs, and in some cases, councillor come in and review administrative budget allocations prior to the tabling of the draft budgets. This will allow for both an objective review of units across the organization and potential to find best practices that can be adopted elsewhere. This will further allow committees, councillors, and staff to be able to find administrative efficiencies on an ongoing basis, not just when we are going to run an operating deficit. After discussing the motion with staff, I'm convinced that this will allow us to find a significant savings without compromising publicly facing services or programs. This is a healthy exercise that any organization of our size should undertake regularly, and with this motion allows us to do so holistically and with greater input from leadership across the organization, including councillors. It's important to note that the current hiring and spending freeze will remain in place until the program is developed and approved by council. And to be clear, this motion does not bind council, but rather provides further direction to staff as they draft their report to FETCO, which will be tabled in December. Council will have a chance to review and vote on the recommended program by staff at that time. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Tierney, please, on the motion.
Great. Thank you for that, Councillor. And I'm just confused. Were you asked to move this forward? Because aren't we doing this already? I'm kind of confused. Is this just a rehash or a little bit of soapboxing? I'm not quite sure what it is.
Thank you for the question. So this motion is, first of all, I spoke to Councillor Egly about it and talked to him about it, and he seemed supportive in terms of what this does. It builds on his motions and both broadens and focuses the administrative review set out in his direction to staff at FETCO.
Councillor Leeper.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very briefly, I think the chief put it very succinctly earlier. It costs money to save money. The mechanisms that staff will come forward to are going to have an associated cost in terms of staff time. When that report comes forward again, will you be able to quantify for us the cost of these internal challenge mechanisms and review mechanisms so that we can determine what the return on investment is of putting in that time?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Eglai, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a question for the city manager because this motion is related to the direction that I had given and you had spoken about earlier today. For everybody's assistance, can you maybe answer two questions? Firstly, because your timeline is getting shorter and shorter, will you be able to accommodate what Councillor Cactus is asking for in time to be part of the report to FEDCO based on the original timeline and the direction? And secondly, maybe since he's worked with your office, you could share with Council how you think the two of them dovetail and will enhance your ability to find and track those efficiencies and revenue streams.
Mr. Mayor, Steve Box in my office did work with the councillor's office. I know the deputy clerk did as well. The way I view this motion is it is complementary to your direction. It provides it's more specific about particular things that council wants to ensure that management considers as it's developing the proposals to respond to your direction. In terms of your question about timing. Yes, we have the time to take this direction, or the direction that's in this resolution, incorporate it into our proposal that we're going to respond to your direction with. Some of that may be at a higher level in terms of approach, and with detail to follow as time goes on. But that's how we view the intent of this motion, and I'd recommend it to Council for approval.
My main concern was in support of what Councillor Cactus is trying to do. He did come to speak to me, and I think that there is a dovetailing there, but I didn't want to hold up the process in any way. So if you're confident you can come back to us in time and combine the two into one report, then I'm fine with that.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor Eglai. Councillor Hubley, please.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'm just listening to what my colleagues are saying to this, and the part that I'm struggling with it is along the lines of what Councillor Tierney said. What part of this are you not doing now? Like maybe we can get that built into the report, because I would think the challenge function and all that's already being done as part of your each of the city managers, department managers' budget process. So I don't need an answer today, but I would appreciate it as part of what gets tabled at FEDCO, explaining what's new in this, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hubley. On the motion as presented, carried. Are there any other motions requiring suspension of the rules of procedure? Est-ce qu'il y a des autres motions? Notice of the motion for consideration of subsequent meeting. Avis de motion pour examen à réunion subséquente. Councillor Caudry, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And this notice of motion will be considered at the next council meeting. It is seconded by Councillor Fleury. The motion basically, Mr. Mayor, suggests that back in 2012, the city was very proactive in their approach for smoke-free Ottawa. And there are some intricacies that have developed since then in terms of either new equipment for smoking products or new products being introduced. So what this motion basically refers to is coming back to the Ottawa Public Board of Health to look at those issues and see how we handle those concerns going forward. So I'll just read the therefore be a resolve for this. Therefore, be it resolved that City Council requests that the Board of Health for the City of Ottawa Health Unit review and consult with relevant stakeholders on expanding of its smoke-free bylaws to regulate the smoking of non-tobacco combustible substances, including herbal water pipe use in public places and workplaces, and report back to the Board of Health with recommendations for the Community Protective Services Committee and Council in time for implementation prior to fall 2016. And further, be it resolved that subject to the Board of Health's approval of Council's request set out in the above recommendations, Bylaw and Regulatory Services, and Legal Services work with Ottawa Public Health to review and recommend any required updates to the smoke-free bylaws based on the review listed above, including any operational and enforcement considerations.
Okay, so that is a notice of motion. Thank you very much, Councillor. Are there any other notice of motions for subsequent meetings? Notice of intent from the Integrity Commissioner to submit the 2015 annual report for consideration at the 25th of November 2015 Council meeting. Avis d'intention du commissaire à l'intégrité de soumettre le rapport annuel de 2015 aux fins d'étude à la réunion du Conseil prévue le 25 novembre 2015. Notice of intent from the City Auditor General to table the annual report at the 26th of November 2015 meeting of the Audit Committee. Avis d'intention de vérificateur général de la Ville de déposer le rapport à la réunion du 26 novembre 2015 du Comité de la vérification. Motion introduce bylaws. Motion portant présentation de règlement. Conseillers Egli et McKenney, s'il vous plaît.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That the bylaws list on the agenda under motion to introduce bylaws, 3 readings be read and passed.
Carried. Adopté. Merci. Confirmation bylaw. Règlement de ratification. Conseiller Egli.
That the following bylaw be read and passed to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting on November the 12th, 2015.
Carried. Written inquiry. Councillor Blais has an announcement. Sorry, that's the next meeting. I apologize. Just one quick note. As many of you know, our soccer franchise in the North American Soccer League, the Fury, have made it into the playoffs of the NASL. They play the final game in New York on Friday, and I know you join me in wishing the Fury the very best, including their coach, Mark DeSantos, who was just named Coach of the Year. So a pretty remarkable achievement for a team that's been around for 2 years. So we wish the Fury the very, very best in the playoffs on Friday. Adjournment. Councillor Egli, please.
That the proceedings of the City Council meeting of 12th of November 2015 be adjourned.
Carried. Adopté. Merci. Meeting adjourned.